Good afternoon to my Roxanna church family. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes here and let a few of you come in. I know this is football Saturday. Championships are being played today. Many right now are probably watching the Ohio State Northwestern game. But this is a moment with Pastor. These are unscripted moments as God just kind of puts something in my spirit, and I feel like it's worthy of sharing with you, the congregation of Big Rocks on the Missionary Baptist Church, and those that view us virtually on our virtual platform of Facebook Live. I really want to share something with you today that may bless you. I want to talk about this for a few moments, and I should give you a day. I just want to talk about for a few moments instructions and promises. Instructions and promises. When we were growing up as a child in my mother's household, she gave us instructions on things that we needed to do. And sometimes attached to her instructions were promises that she would fulfill. Was something that we wanted to do or something that she was going to get for us that we would like to have, but it was tied to the instructions. And I want somebody to understand today, in your life, God has given you some instructions, but your promises are tied to your instructions. The failure to follow instructions takes God to a place where he does not deliver the promise to you. It doesn't mean he's not going to bless you, but you actually won't see the promise fulfilled that he has set aside for you. To help you understand this better, if you get a chance, go over to Numbers chapter 20. Look at verse 8 through 12. In the book of Exodus, God had told Moses in front of the children of Israel to smoke the rock twice, and the rock would deliver water. Moses was obedient to those instructions. And being obedient to those instructions, the water came from the rock, and God was glorified. But in Numbers chapter 20, this is what happens. Moses is given instruction to gather Israel, but this time not to smoke the rock, not to hit the rock, but to speak to the rock. And the rock would produce water, just to paraphrase. But out of Moses' frustration because of the word that he uses to describe Israel, he calls them rebels because he's identifying the fact that they've gone against God. And even today, so many of us that are supposed to be with God are rebels because we're going against the grain with God. But his instruction to Moses was to speak to the rock, and the rock would produce water. Out of Moses' frustration, he failed to follow the instructions, and he hit the rock, and the rock produced water. Now God does not get the glory in this moment. Moses was still blessed after the moment by God, but he never got the promise, the opportunity to walk in the promised land, because he failed to follow the instructions of God. I want somebody to hear me today. Some people out there talking about living their best life. I come today to tell you so many are not living their best life because they fail to follow the instructions of God. Yes, God has given all of us some promises, but the key to fulfill promises is in following the instructions of God, not cutting corners, not circumventing, not coming up with our own thoughts and theology about how we want our lives to be played out. But we have to live according to the instructions of God to see the fulfillment of his promises. And right now, I want you to understand, Roxanna, and to those that partner with us virtually, God put this in my spirit as we're closing this year out. We need to make sure when we come into 2021 that we start focusing on being instruction followers so that we can see the promise of God in the year to come. All the promises. Some of us, because you missed out on a promise, doesn't mean you can't regain the opportunity for us as believers. I'm a living witness. I've read his instructions. I heard his instructions through his word. And there were times when I didn't follow the instructions and it cost me something in his promise. But when I went back and corrected myself according to his instructions, God came forth and fulfilled the promise in a mighty way. I want somebody to hear that today who's trying to start your business, who's starting doing something on your own that you're believing God for. You're an entrepreneur, or on the other hand, you're not seeing the productivity in your job. You're not getting a promotion. You're not seeing your family moving in the right direction. I challenge you today to follow the instructions of God to receive the promise. It's simple. It sounds simple, but it takes work. Because first of all, if you don't spend time with him, how will you know what his instructions are? If you don't spend time in his word, how will you know what his instructions are? So today I challenge you in this moment with Pastor is to become instruction followers. Yeah, maybe years have passed in your life and it looks like it's all wasted time. But I contend today that God, in the twinkling of an eye, can put the promise in your hands if you are willing to follow his instructions. So as we close out the year and we come down to this place right now, you ought to be making a decision that I'm going to get it right. I'm going to follow God's instructions and I'm going to watch him deliver my promise. It's just around the corner. I hope this can encourage somebody today that take the example from Numbers 20, chapter 20, looking at verse 8 through 12. Moses knew the power of God, but he allowed the frustration of other people that they brought to him, how they frustrated him to rob him of God's promise. I don't want you to be robbed because you let people frustrate you. Don't allow others to take away from you or cause you not to receive what God has set aside for you. So today, that's my challenge. Be instruction followers, to follow the word of God to the letter. Live your life so it's pleasing to him, but that it also glorifies him. And God shall fulfill the promises that he's made unto you. This is an opportunity for all of us. None of us are perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. I just claim to be a willing servant. God called me, but I'm just willing to do what he said do. And today, this is your opportunity to be an instruction follower. If you hadn't got it right, go back, review his instructions, then start to live by his instructions and to carry out them in your life. And watch God put the promise in place for you to still receive it. It's never too late to get right with God. Somebody hear me today. It's never too late to get right with God. In this pandemic we're facing right now, we're in a critical time because so many are leaving here right now. Even as we're speaking, hospitals are full across this nation, people in ICU hooked up to machines. And right now, so many are leaving. But God has spared you another day. Be an instruction follower. Maximize your potential in the days that we have left and in the life that you have left. Be an instruction follower to receive the promises of God. It's at hand. All you have to do is be obedient. And out of your obedience, God will fulfill his promise. You can be blessed, but there's a promise set aside for you. Don't miss out what God has for you because you fail to follow his instructions. I hope you have a good rest of your day. This has been a moment with Pastor to my Roxanna Church family. I love you dearly. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 10:30 on our virtual broadcast for Sunday morning worship, and God will speak again to us. But for right now, a moment with Pastor. I hope this word has touched you in such a way that it might challenge you to do something different in your life. It's never too late to get it right with God. Have a great rest of the day. Looking forward to seeing you on tomorrow morning. May God bless you and keep you always, is my prayer.